Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I have this back catalog or backlog of video ideas that I would like to make, and when I think of one, I jot it down or I take it down in notes, and then forget about it and look back and talk to my friends about it and something like that. And so I've noticed that I've got a bunch of these. So this is an idea I came up with a while ago, or something I noticed a while ago, and that is when I play as a game master in a role-playing game. Very often, I'll treat the non-player characters differently at different times. You know, I'll borrow a term that my friend Anthony jokingly uses and calls it playing in the second person, where when a player will switch between referring to their character in the third person, Bob goes here, Bob does this. What does Bob think about that? And all of a sudden start to say I and switching into the first person and going back and forth rather than sticking to one. And we'll jokingly refer to that sometimes as playing in the second person. This can happen an awful lot for me, and I've noticed for some other people, not everybody, as a game master. And I think it's a very interesting phenomenon that, while I'm playing the world, so to speak, and I'm, controlling the actions of all these non-player characters, sometimes as the player characters are doing this, that, or the other thing, and they come into contact with them, I'll simply say, well, people are doing this, or he does that. Even during an interaction with a non-player character, you talk to the bouncer at this nightclub, and he gives you the surly eye and says whatever he says, all that sort of stuff. Other times, I will slip into character as a non-player character and begin to talk in their voice. Whether or not I'm going to actually alter my voice is kind of irrelevant. The idea that I do the same thing that I do when I'm a player, playing a player character, where I kind of put them on and play from their perspective. And very often I will do that with the non-player characters in various situations. And I may switch back and forth. That's where it gets a little interesting. Normally, as a player, I would say, well, then I stand up and I do this and then say something. I don't even say, and I say. I just start talking as the player character. However, playing a non-player character, such as the victim's father in Blade Runner, I'll say, well, he stands up, or he gets very mad, or he looks to his guards or whatever, and then he says, and then I'll continue on, and go put this non-player character rather, back on, and play in character, say what they say. Sometimes, very often, thinking what they're thinking, trying to get inside their head, because if you're a good game master, you start to know the motivations and viewpoints of non-player characters. Sometimes there's things that you've read about in a prepared scenario or you've made up yourself. Sometimes you make them up on the spot, and non-player characters never existed before, but now you give them a persona. You start to think, well, what do they really want? All the usual stuff. I find that very, very interesting, that, how seamlessly this can take place and how unconsciously this can take place for me. And I watch other people and I wonder if it's as unconscious for them or not. I see plenty of game masters that never do that, and they constantly remain in the third person all the time. He says this, he does that. Other times, I've witnessed game masters kind of go back and forth and kind of put on that character, so to speak, and start to play them. I think really, really cool, really, really interesting. It reminded me of a dynamic in the game Circle of Hands, unnamed characters versus named characters, where once you give a character a name, a non-player character a name, now they're a named character. A different set of rules applies to them. This isn't quite like that, but it's interesting how we start to, as game masters, move a lot of non-player characters around us, just like pawns. We say what they're doing, they say what they say. Other ones we jump into. And maybe there's somebody that really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't terribly important, unless the players decide they are. They're not terribly important, but they're a living, breathing person in that world. And all of a sudden, during that interaction, they come to life, more so than other times. Why does this happen? Why do we do that sometimes and not other times? I find this kind of stuff really fascinating. What about you?